I was documenting an old church's renovation project for my journalism career, late at night when my flash illuminated a crack in the floor, an unfinished exorcism ritual, and bones along the edges of a pentagram drawn in the center. When I tried to leave the room, I heard footsteps on the stairs. My phone had no signal and the doors were locked. The assignment seemed straightforward when my editor described it. The church was undergoing its first major renovation in over a century, and the local paper wanted a photo essay documenting the process. I arrived on a Tuesday in late October. The church was an imposing Gothic revival structure built in 1891, standing like a stone sentinel at the edge of a town small enough that my arrival at the only motel raised eyebrows. Father Thomas, the elderly priest who'd overseen the church for nearly 30 years, greeted me with surprising enthusiasm. "Not many young people take interest in church history these days," he said. "The renovation team only comes during weekdays, so you'll have evenings and weekends to yourself if you need additional photos." The first few days went as expected. I photographed contractors replacing rotted pews, stonemasons repairing crumbling exterior details, and electricians updating ancient wiring. Standard human interest material. By Friday, most of the workers had left for the weekend, and Father Thomas handed me a key. "I have to visit our sister parish in Millfield, but feel free to continue your work. Just lock up when you're finished." That evening, I returned to the church alone, intending to capture some atmospheric shots of the sanctuary in evening light. The empty church had an entirely different character at dusk. The stained glass windows glowed with the last rays of sunlight, casting colorful patterns across the stone floor. I was photographing the partially removed flooring near the altar when my flash illuminated something in the exposed earth beneath the stone tiles, what looked like the edge of a wooden structure. Curious, I crouched down, shining my phone light into the gap. There was a room beneath the church floor. The gap in the flooring was small, but I would see what appeared to be a wooden platform below, perhaps the top of a staircase. I moved some of the loosened tiles, widening the opening. Yes, definitely stairs leading down about 8 feet to a dirt floor. Professional curiosity overrode caution. This could be an interesting historical feature for my article, perhaps a forgotten storage room or burial crypt. I widened the opening enough to slip through, lowering myself carefully onto the wooden stairs. The beam of my phone light revealed a chamber roughly 20 feet square with earthen walls supported by ancient timbers. My light caught strange markings on the walls, symbols that didn't look like any Christian iconography I recognized. As I reached the bottom of the stairs, I noticed something that made me freeze. The floor had been cleared in the center with a large pentagram etched into the dirt. At each point of the star was a small pile of bones. Animal bones, I hoped, though some looked disturbingly human. In the center of the pentagram sat a wooden chair with restraints attached to the arms and legs. Dried, dark stains covered the wood in patterns that could only be blood. Around the chair, a circle of what looked like salt or ash had been drawn, partially disturbed as if someone had crossed it in haste. Against the far wall stood a small wooden table holding an ancient leather-bound book, its pages yellow with age. The book lay open, revealing handwritten text in Latin. Though I couldn't read the language, I recognized a date at the top of the page, June 17, 1891, the church's founding year. I took several photos intending to translate the text later. I also noticed a small wooden door in the wall opposite the stairs, presumably leading to another room or tunnel. That's when I heard it. The unmistakable sound of the church's front door opening and closing, followed by footsteps in the sanctuary above. Relief washed over me. Probably Father Thomas returning early. I called out, "Hello, Father Thomas, I'm down here." No response, just more footsteps now moving deliberately toward the altar area where the opening to this hidden room lay exposed. I moved toward the stairs when a shadow fell across the opening above. Someone was standing at the edge looking down. All I could see were shoes and the hem of what might have been black pants or a cassock. "I'm sorry if I wasn't supposed to be down here," I said. I found the opening and was just exploring. The figure shifted slightly but remained silent. Then slowly, deliberately, it moved away from the opening. I heard more footsteps, then the unmistakable sound of stone scraping against stone. Horror dawned as I realized what was happening. Someone was sliding the heavy floor tiles back into place, sealing the opening. "Wait!" I shouted, rushing up the stairs. "I'm still down here!" My hands pressed against the underside of a stone tile just as it settled into place, plunging the chamber into darkness save for my phone light. I pushed upward, but the tile was too heavy to move from below. "Hey!" I shouted, pounding on the stone. "I'm trapped down here!" No response, just footsteps moving away. I returned to the bottom of the stairs, considering my options. The only other exit appeared to be the wooden door I'd noticed earlier. With no other choice, I approached it, finding it surprisingly unlocked. Beyond lay a narrow earthen tunnel, supported by old timbers, extending into darkness. I entered, moving carefully as the ceiling was low. The passageway extended about 30 feet before opening into another chamber, smaller than the first, but with a narrow shaft extending upward, with metal rungs embedded in the wall forming a ladder. Hope surged within me. This could be a way out. I directed my light upward, seeing the shaft rise about 15 feet, ending at what appeared to be a wooden trapdoor. I tested the lowest rung, finding it sturdy despite its age, then began to climb. Reaching the top, I pressed against the trapdoor. It resisted at first, then gave way. Cool night air rushed in as I pushed it fully open and pulled myself up into a cemetery. I emerged from what appeared to be an old maintenance shed in the church graveyard behind the church. Relief flooded through me as I closed the trapdoor and oriented myself. My relief was short-lived. As I approached the church, I noticed movement inside the sanctuary, a figure moving near the altar. I crept closer, peering through the colored glass. In the dim light, I could make out a solitary figure kneeling before the altar, though I could only see their back. Something about their posture seemed familiar. My breath caught as the figure stood and turned partially toward the window. The figure's face became visible for just a moment. The eyes were too dark, the expression a twisted approximation of human emotion. I stumbled backward, heart pounding. The Latin text, the interrupted ritual, the pentagram, it all suddenly made horrible sense. Whatever had been trapped in that room beneath the church had found a way out. My phone vibrated in my pocket. The screen showed 3 missed calls from Father Thomas and a text message. "Where are you? Something's wrong. Don't enter the church. The ritual was never completed." As I stared at the message, the church door opened. The figure, the thing wearing my appearance, stepped out into the moonlight. It moved with a fluid grace that mimicked humanity but didn't quite achieve it. It paused at the top of the church steps, appearing to savor the night air. Then it turned its head with unnatural swiftness, looking directly at where I hid in the shadows of the graveyard. A smile spread across my stolen face as it raised a hand in greeting. My phone vibrated again. Another text from Father Thomas. "It can only maintain the disguise for 3 days. After that, it needs the original. Hide." The thing that wore my face started walking toward me. I turned and ran deeper into the cemetery, desperate to escape. I've been hiding for 2 days now, moving between abandoned buildings on the outskirts of the town. Father Thomas is coming with help, someone he claims has dealt with this entity before. The thing that looks like me has been seen around town, apparently conducting interviews for my story, acting so convincingly that no one suspects. No one except Father Thomas, who recognized the signs. Subtle wrongness in behavior, phrases in Latin slipping into conversation, lack of reflection in certain consecrated mirrors. I've translated portions of the photos I took. The ritual in 1891 was an exorcism performed on the church's founder, who had become possessed during construction. The exorcism failed, the demon too powerful to expel completely. Unable to save the man, the priests created a containment chamber beneath the church, trapping the possessed founder there. For over a century, it remained imprisoned until I unwittingly provided what it needed: a new vessel, a way to finally escape. I hear footsteps outside, heavy, deliberate, familiar. It's found me, and it's wearing my face. While conducting a routine investigation in a historic mansion, the floor suddenly collapsed, and I found myself in a dark basement. As my light was fading, I realized that this room wasn't empty, and that the entity living inside it had perfectly adapted to the darkness. The Blackwood estate had been abandoned for nearly 60 years when our archaeological team received permission to document it. As lead archaeologist, I was responsible for the mansion's interior while my colleagues focused on the grounds. On the third day, I discovered something odd in the library, a section of shelving that seemed shallower than the rest. Examining it carefully, I found a hidden lever that revealed a narrow passage. I radioed my colleague Sarah to report my discovery before entering to investigate. The passage led to a small study containing a desk with research notes. Behind the desk was another door opening to a stone staircase spiraling downward. Curiosity got the better of me, and I descended 37 steps to reach a heavy iron-banded door. Through the small barred window, I could see only darkness. Using my flashlight, I glimpsed a large room with a dirt floor. The door wasn't locked, but it was heavy, requiring my full weight to push it open. I stepped inside to examine the space, roughly 30 feet square with walls of fitted stone. As I moved further in, I heard a scraping noise behind me. The door had swung shut. When I tried to reopen it, I found it wouldn't budge. Someone had placed a wooden beam across it from the outside. "Hello?" I called. "Is someone there?" The door's stuck. No response. My radio returned only static. Too much stone between me and the surface. Examining the room more thoroughly, I discovered crude drawings and writing etched into the stone walls. They left me here to die, but I didn't. 1897, Mother says I'm sick, but I'm not. I can see in the dark now. Near the center of the room, I found a small opening in the floor, a tunnel about 2 feet in diameter. As I contemplated whether to explore it, my flashlight flickered. The batteries were dying. Before I could decide, I heard soft scraping sounds coming from the tunnel. Something was approaching. A pale hand with elongated fingers emerged from the opening, followed by a horrifying figure that hauled itself out. In my failing flashlight beam, I glimpsed an emaciated humanoid form with limbs too long for its torso, translucent skin. "Who's there?" The voice was raspy but human. "Did they send another doctor?" "Who are you?" I managed to ask. "Edward Blackwood, of course, though they preferred to call me the Mistake or Poor Sick Eddie." "What year is it?" 2023, I replied. 94 years then. They locked me away in 1929, told everyone I died of tuberculosis. My flashlight dimmed again, staying dark longer this time. When it reluctantly brightened, I saw he'd moved closer. "Why are you here?" he asked. "The family never sends anyone." "I'm an archaeologist. We're documenting the estate before renovation. No one knew about this room, about you." "Archaeologist? Studying dead things in forgotten places. How appropriate." He took another step closer. "The tunnels connect to the old well, and from there to the storm drains. All sorts of things find their way down there. Rats, strays, occasionally larger things." My flashlight flickered, then died completely, plunging us into perfect darkness. "Your light is gone," he said, his voice now just feet away. "Don't worry, you'll learn to see without it. I'll teach you. We have all the time in the world." "What do you want from me?" I asked, backing away until I hit the wall. "Company, conversation, and perhaps a small favor. I want to see the world that forgot me." "I could help you," I suggested, playing for time, "but we need to get that door open. Do you know another way out?" "The tunnels," he said. "They lead to the well and from there to the grounds, but it's a difficult journey for someone unaccustomed to darkness." Edward explained his family history as we made our way to the tunnels, how the Blackwoods had locked him away for a condition that food couldn't satisfy. I didn't want to contemplate what that meant. The tunnel was claustrophobic, barely wider than my shoulders. After crawling for what felt like an eternity, we reached a junction where multiple tunnels branched off. "I can become others," Edward suddenly explained. "Wear them like garments. The hunger I spoke of isn't for flesh, but for essence, identity." I began crawling forward desperately, choosing a tunnel at random. Edward laughed behind me. "Run if you must, the tunnels always lead back to me." Eventually, I emerged into a larger chamber. Using my phone's weak light, I discovered to my horror that it was filled with bones, mostly animal remains, but unmistakably human ones as well. 3 partially decomposed bodies were huddled against the far wall. "My collection," Edward said from behind me. "I try to preserve them, but it never lasts. I need fresh vessels." "I've been watching the house," he continued. "Once I wear your form, I can walk among your team. Choose the next vessel when yours fades." I felt along the walls and found a piece of metal, an old pipe about a foot long. Not much of a weapon, but better than nothing. Just as Edward asked if I'd made my decision, I heard faint voices calling from a distance. "Dr. Mitchell, can you hear us?" My team was searching for me. "Here!" I shouted. "I'm down here, in the tunnels!" Edward lunged forward. I swung the pipe, connecting with something solid. But he kept coming, his hands finding my throat with unerring accuracy. "They won't find you in time," he growled. Then I heard the bark of a search dog. Edward's grip loosened slightly in surprise, enough for me to break free and scramble toward the well shaft where I could see flashlight beams approaching. "Mitchell, we have dogs tracking you. Keep making noise." "Here," I croaked. "Follow my voice." I reached the well shaft and began climbing toward the light. Edward remained below, perhaps unwilling to risk being seen. My rescuers, 2 officers and Sarah with the search dog, pulled me to safety. I explained about falling through the floor, but said nothing about Edward. How could I explain a century-old man living in darkness? I had a condition that needed documenting at home for my months of sudden fainting spells. My doctor told me to record my entire day, but when I checked the camera last night, I saw my image in the recording looking directly at me and speaking. "It was good that you recorded all this, Sarah." The episode started 6 months ago. Random blackouts that left me disoriented and confused. I'd come to on the floor or slumped over furniture with no memory of falling. Sometimes minutes would pass, sometimes hours. The worst episode lasted an entire day. I woke up in my car in a town 3 hours away with no recollection of driving there. The medical tests were exhaustive and inconclusive. Blood work, MRIs, sleep studies, all normal. No epilepsy, no narcolepsy, no physical cause they could identify. My neurologist, Dr. Reeves, finally suggested it might be psychological, dissociative episodes brought on by stress or trauma. "I want you to document these episodes," she told me during our last appointment. "Set up cameras in your home, record yourself throughout the day. Maybe we'll catch something that can help us understand what's happening." I ordered the equipment that day, a comprehensive security camera system with motion detection and continuous recording capability. I installed cameras in every room of my small apartment except the bathroom. The system uploaded footage to cloud storage, which I could access from my phone or laptop. For the first week, nothing unusual happened. I didn't have any episodes, and the cameras recorded only my mundane daily routine, working from home, cooking meals, watching TV. Then, last Tuesday, it happened again. I was making dinner when suddenly the world tilted. I felt the familiar fog closing in, my limbs growing heavy. Then, nothing. I came to on my kitchen floor, the stove off thankfully. According to the clock on the microwave, I'd been out for nearly 3 hours. My first thought was to check the camera footage. I grabbed my laptop and opened the security app, navigating to the kitchen camera for that time period. There I was chopping vegetables when I suddenly froze, knife mid-air. Then something strange happened. Instead of collapsing as I expected to see, I simply stood there motionless for almost a full minute. Then I moved again, but differently. My posture changed, becoming more fluid, my movements more precise. I watched as I calmly turned off the stove, then looked directly at the camera. My face wore an expression I didn't recognize, a knowing smile that seemed out of place. "Finally," my recorded self said to the camera, "some privacy." A chill ran through me. The person on the screen was me, but somehow not me. The way she moved, her expressions, her entire demeanor was foreign. I continued watching as this other version of me moved around my apartment with comfortable familiarity. She finished preparing the meal, but instead of my usual haphazard approach, she worked with practiced efficiency. She ate at the dining table rather than on the couch. She even washed the dishes immediately afterward, something I rarely did. Most disturbing was how often she looked at the cameras, seeming to always know exactly where they were, even though I'd tried to place them discreetly. Sometimes she would pause and stare directly into one, smiling that same unsettling smile. For nearly 3 hours, this other version of me occupied my apartment and my body. She read a book from my shelf that I'd never opened, listened to classical music which I never played, and wrote extensively in a notebook I didn't recognize. Then, at precisely 10:17 p.m., she looked up at the kitchen camera again. "Time's up for now," she said clearly. "But don't worry, I'll be back." She walked to the center of the kitchen, closed her eyes, and swayed slightly. Then my body crumpled to the floor. Exactly where I had awakened, I spent the next day reviewing older footage from previous episodes and found similar patterns. Each time, instead of simply fainting, I would become this other person, this other version of myself. The episodes had been increasing in frequency and duration. That night, I set up a new camera, one that wasn't connected to the main system. I hid it in a bookshelf aimed at my living room and let it run. On the third night, while reviewing footage from my hidden camera, I found something that made my blood run cold. At 2:17 a.m., while I was asleep in bed, The footage showed me walking into the living room. I watched as nighttime me sat on the couch and looked directly at the hidden camera, the one she shouldn't have known about. "I know you're watching this, Sarah," my recorded self said. "I know you've set up this camera too. You're becoming quite troublesome." She smiled that unfamiliar smile. "Let me introduce myself properly. My name is also Sarah. I'm you, but from a different branch of possibilities. I've been trying to make contact for months, but the connection only works when your consciousness steps aside." "I know this is difficult to comprehend," she continued, "but where I come from, my timeline, if you will, things have gone very badly. I've found a way to cross over temporarily to inhabit your body in this reality. These episodes you're experiencing are the windows that allow me through." She leaned forward, her expression intense. "It was good that you recorded all this, Sarah, because I need you to understand what's coming. In my timeline, it's already happened. The collapse began small. A banking crisis, a localized conflict, resource scarcity. Then it accelerated. I'm reaching back to warn you to help you prevent what's coming." My recorded self looked around, suddenly alert, as if hearing something I couldn't. "I don't have much time. The connection is unstable, but I'll be back. Look for my messages. I'll leave them where only you will find them." With that, she closed her eyes, swayed slightly, then lay down on the couch, appearing to fall asleep. I sat in stunned silence, trying to process what I'd seen. It had to be a delusion, a breakdown of some kind. There is no such thing as alternate timelines or other versions of oneself crossing over. Yet the woman in the video moved differently, spoke differently, even held herself differently than I did. And she knew about the hidden camera. That night, I found the first message, a note written in my handwriting but not written by me, hidden inside a book I'd never read. It contained specific instructions. Check news for Northfield Laboratory fire. Scheduled maintenance accident 10:15. Will kill 6, can be prevented. Call anonymous tip to fire marshal about faulty wiring in West Wing server room. Do it from public phone. I checked the date. October 15th was 3 days away. This was madness. Yet I found myself looking up Northfield Laboratory, a research facility about 20 miles from my apartment. On October 14th, I drove to a gas station 2 towns over and used their payphone to call the local fire marshal's office. I left an anonymous tip exactly as the note had instructed, feeling foolish and paranoid. The next day, I anxiously checked the news. Nothing about Northfield appeared. By evening, I had convinced myself it had all been delusion. Then at 9:17 p.m., my phone buzzed with a news alert. Emergency at Northfield Laboratory. Evacuation underway. I watched in shock as the local news reported a fire had broken out during scheduled maintenance, but thankfully, all personnel had been evacuated safely thanks to a recent fire inspection, prompted by an anonymous tip. That night, I waited for my other self to appear. Around midnight, I felt the familiar fog descending. I fought against it, trying to stay conscious, but the darkness won. I woke up the next morning with no memory of what had happened. Rushing to check the footage, I found myself speaking directly to the camera. "Good work with Northfield, Sarah. 6 lives saved, but that was just the beginning. The real crisis is still coming. In my timeline, it's December 23rd when everything changes. A coordinated attack on 3 power grids. Millions dead in the first week from the cascade of system failures." She held up a notebook showing complex diagrams and lists. "I need you to trust me. The episodes will increase. I need more time here to put things in motion." The footage showed her making calls from my phone. accessing my computer, executing what appeared to be an organized plan. Just before the episode ended, she looked directly into the camera again. "When you wake up, check under the floorboard beneath your bed. I've left something there for you." With trembling hands, I moved my bed aside and pried up the floorboard she had mentioned. Inside was a small metal box containing a USB drive, newspaper clippings from events that hadn't happened yet, and a handwritten journal detailing the collapse of society beginning with a massive power grid failure on December 23rd, just 2 months away. The episodes increased in frequency as predicted. My other self, my future self, took control more often, spending hours in my body making calls, sending emails, arranging meetings with people I didn't know. My life began to fracture. I lost my job, missed appointments as the episodes became longer, less predictable. Dr. Reeves wanted to hospitalize me, but I refused. How could I explain that I was voluntarily surrendering my body to another version of myself to prevent a global catastrophe? "We're close," she told me through the camera one night. "The authorities are tracking the main group now based on the anonymous tips. But there's one cell they don't know about, the most dangerous one. I need to deal with them personally." The next day, I found myself in a motel room in a city 4 hours from home with no memory of how I'd gotten there. On the bed were weapons, electronics, surveillance equipment. That night, when I regained consciousness, I was back in my apartment. My body ached. I had bruises I couldn't explain, and a cut on my arm that had been carefully bandaged. The footage showed my future self returning to the apartment, bloody, exhausted, but smiling. She looked at the camera and simply said, "It's done. The last cell has been neutralized. The attack won't happen." She recorded a final message. "The crisis has been averted. This branch of reality will not experience the collapse that destroyed mine. The connection between us is fading. As the future changes, the timeline that created me is disappearing. You'll have your life back. The episodes will stop."